Right, so welcome to another episode of Cricket Cards on YouTube. So today we're going to be talking about a trade that was discussed, it was last week on Sports Cards Nonsense. And this was a trade for a Flair 1986 Michael Jordan PSA 7. And on the other side of the trade was the 1992 Total Sachin Tendulkar cricket card. In fact, there were two of them. So one is a PSA 5, the other one is PSA DNA Authentic because it has a signature on it. So, I mean, I guess this video is mostly for those that kind of approach the discussion as in, I don't get this, but why does this make sense? There are a lot of people that really weren't too interested, didn't know who Sachin was and didn't care. And that's cool. A lot of us don't have kind of the time or the interest to kind of find out what's on the other side of the table. But for those that are interested in this, I thought it might be interesting to kind of put together a video. As for myself, I collect Jordan, and although Sachin Tendulkar is a cricketing goat, he's kind of arguably the Michael Jordan of cricket. I focus my cricketing collection on Bradman, who's, I don't know, maybe something a little else, kind of like a Babe Ruth Jordan kind of mix. So anyway, I thought it might be interesting to kind of put these thoughts together. Where do I sit on this trade? I don't know. I love the Jordan card. It's always been one of my favorites, and the Tendulkar card is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So let's jump in. So maybe if we can begin, maybe with a little bit of kind of the history, because if we're kind of not really familiar with the history of the value of cricket card collectibles, then this makes no sense. So if we kind of begin here, I mean, even if we just touch on the cricket and baseball kind of relationship over the years, it's fascinating that the first reference of both cricket and baseball are in the same town just outside of London, although kind of a couple of centuries apart from each other. But if we think back to the starting of like the international cricket game, which is like arguably the most followed format of the game. First international match didn't include Australia, didn't include England. It was between America and Canada. And actually, Harry Wright, who's broadly considered the kind of godfather of the modern format of baseball, his father actually played in that match. And then he played in the first match between England and America, which happened in the 1850s. And actually, the American team consists of both the United States players and Canadian players. And then even if you look at, I think this is probably the first ticket. Harry Wright is on the front, and he's not got a baseball bat, he's got a cricket bat. So there's always been this history, and even if you look back to the very origins, how kind of baseball was thought to have grown out of some of the things that needed to change in cricket. It's fascinating. But if we just kind of go back to the kind of cards for a second, if we go back into the 90s, I mean, baseball cards are always worth more than cricket cards, but the gap really wasn't that huge. It was big, but wasn't that huge. Most valuable cricket card was worth about 1/60th of the most valuable baseball card. And so for this example, we're just using the Honus Wagner T206, the PSA one. But now, kind of that's blown out. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably north of 1/1500th of the value. And these are just example cricket cards. I don't even think they exist, but they're just kind of place fillers there. But if we look at the 90s, I mean, now, not to compare the Bradman and the Jordan card. The Jordan card is the greatest card, arguably, from the 90s across all sports. And the cricket the Bradman one has kind of just stayed in cricket, but the Bradman is there's a very strong argument that it is the best cricket card from the 90s. And so, if you went back to the 90s, the Bradman, although it says 1993, the signed version was held back and didn't come out until 95, 96. And so if you look at the kind of price differences at that time, if you go, for example, the Beckett magazine, you look at the 1998 issue, I think it's, what is this one? I think it's maybe February or March 1998. You could pick up, 4 or 5 Jordans for the price of Bradman, which would have been a great deal at the time. If whoever had the chance to do that trade would have done it and picked up the Jordans. But there was a time, where the 90s cards were really valuable. And then if we kind of look to the end of the 1990s where things were starting to kind of drop, when Jordan stepped back from basketball, he didn't just impact basketball prices, he impacted collectible prices in sports across pretty much every single sport. And so we started to get that dip in cricket as well. And so like some of the examples here, it's super hard to find like historical sales that are public. It's from Christie's. The Teddy set, not excessively rare, but a desirable set, quite a large set. They were expecting 30,000, not including the buyer's premiums, I guess. Well, that come to about 37, 38,000. So US dollar value in that time was about $30,000. And so, I can't actually find any examples of the most valuable cards selling by themselves. But then there's also the Tally-Ho set, and this is actually quite an important set. This is the first Australian cricket card product ever made. So yeah, there's always been value there, but that has changed. It's changed for a host of reasons, mostly because of the format changing in cricket, and then all the licensing issues associated with that, which has meant that there really hasn't, over the last 20, 25 years, there really hasn't been much product, and that product, when it has been produced, has either been unlicensed, but in all cases, at least over the last 10 years, it hasn't included in any Indian players. So you can maybe imagine if you had an NBA product for 10 years, 15 years with no Americans in it and it was unlicensed. That's really what's happened. But that's, hopefully changing. So now let's kind of look at the makeup of the deal. So if we just look at cricket as a whole, I mean, it's one of the most followed sports in the world. You've got huge stadiums, and Narendra Modi stadiums, it's about 130,000 people. Sachin Tendulkar's popularity, even though he's retired, he's got 50 odd million Instagram followers. So kind of there is that popularity. And then there's also kind of what's potentially happening. So we haven't been able to have any real licensed products. We haven't had any signed products. Tendulkar has never had an official signed product. So again, as I touched on previously, we're hoping that's going to change, maybe next year or something like that. And then when we look at that, let's say the kind of population, the Michael Jordan card is at a kind of a PSA 7, it's just over 5,000. You got almost 15,000 cards graded higher than a PSA 7. And then kind of with the Tendulkar card, although it's much rarer, there are possibly kind of a few more than there are that have been graded to date, but the population is 6 and there's only 8 that are graded higher. This card has huge problems though, mostly because when you collected that card, you're also given a like a little binder, a little kind of a sticker album in effect, and you're encouraged to glue or sticky tape that card into a specific place in that binder. And so lots of these cards have got that kind of damage. And so it's tricky to actually get in a higher grade. And then if we look at kind of what we're seeing happening on Fanatics and Golden, like Fanatics, there's another Tendulkar kind of rookie card. So the first licensed Tendulkar cards, there's 2 of them. And the Pro Sport is the other one. That sold, was it the other month on Fanatics for $12,000. And the PSA pop count, I'm not sure what it is. It's definitely higher than the total, but there are 15 PSA 9s. So, I think there's an argument that this estimate that PSA gives the total card of 5,364 is maybe a little off, because the last public sale that I can see is 5 years ago of 3,600. Is the trade reasonable? I think if you love Jordan and you love this card, which many people do, you probably wouldn't want to let it go. But if you're kind of thinking, well, what's the upside? Is it reasonable? But that arguably one of the most famous sportsmen globally, although given not very famous in America, a card on such a low pop is worth so much less. Maybe not so much. So yeah, I think we'll see how it plays out for the collectors. As a side note, the Tendulkars went to America. Anyway, I hope that's been interesting. All right, cheers.